Good evening. Welcome to The Sacred Journey. The Sacred Journey is the program that reminds you that life is a wonderful adventure and each and every experience you have is a unique and perfect opportunity for learning. I'm Joyce St. Germaine, and tonight's program is chair yoga for every day. Now that might sound like a kind of a weird expression, chair yoga, because most people when you think of yoga, you think of mats and lying on the floor and doing all kinds of stretching and things like that. Well, this is a wonderful modified version, and I am so thrilled to have my dear friend and my yoga teacher, Leslie Gordon. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, Joyce. I'm glad to be here.
Well, you are this unbelievable source of wisdom and knowledge to do with yoga, the yoga practice, the lifestyle. We've been lucky enough to have you on air before, and you're one of my earliest yoga teachers, and you yourself have been doing yoga, what, 1,000,000 years or close?
Well, I'm not 1,000,000 years old. 20.
A
About
long
20.
time.
A long time before I had kids. So.
And before it was fashionable, I don't want to say fashionable, that kind
Yeah.
of minimizes the benefits of it. When I thought it was just a fashionable thing, and it's a fad, it'll pass quickly before I got into it.
Right. I remember buying my first VCR tape. You remember VCR tapes?
Oh, of course I do.
So I was doing yoga with VCR tapes. That's how long ago it was.
Okay.
And so yeah, started with some relatives who were getting into yoga, and then eventually found my way to an area yoga studio, found my teacher, then went to yoga teacher training. So that was about 15 years ago. And the focus for my yoga is therapeutic. So I really like to help people of all ages, all body shapes, all fitness levels, so that it's not just about a person dressed up in really fancy yoga clothes, looking gorgeous like somebody just did her hair and makeup for her before she went to class, you know. Not that
Or
there's
before
anything,
he went
or
to class.
before he went to class, but and there's not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think sometimes that discourages what I'll call regular people from thinking that yoga is for them as well. And really, you don't even have to get out of a chair to do yoga. You really don't even have to get out of your bed to do yoga. So it doesn't really matter what's going on in your body, in your life, with your health. You can always manage to find something, some part of this practice that you can do.
One thing that I've always admired about you is that you do promote yoga as a practice, not just a 1 hour, you're on this mat, that's yoga, and then you leave, and then in another week maybe you'll do yoga, but it's a practice, and I love that about you, and you welcome everybody, and you help people to modify, and I like that a lot.
That's right. I actually encourage everybody by calling my classes Yoga for Everybody, because I want people to feel like they can come no matter what their body is like. I have one class during the week, and it's a regular gentle class, but I have a woman that does the whole class in a chair because she doesn't want to get up and down off the floor. It's very difficult for her because she has some knee problems, and so she is able to modify the class and sit in the chair and do the whole thing. So, and she has a lot of courage, you know, because she's sitting in a chair when everybody else is sitting on the floor, and hopefully what I think I've done is created a welcoming environment so that she also feels comfortable being there, and a community of people who support each other rather than make it into a competition.
Well, your classes always promote this sort of camaraderie because especially your Saturday morning class, I started going and I got a few friends and neighbors to come, and we met people in the class, and after class many of us all go out and enjoy having a lovely leisurely breakfast together, and friendships have been formed from that class, and I credit you with the mood that you set there. But people are probably wondering, what chair yoga? We tried to recreate a little bit of an office setting here, and I'm going to let you show us things that people can do in a chair, at the workplace, at home. Don't have to go to a yoga studio, although I heartily encourage that, but in the meantime.
The nice thing about going to a studio or the gym, to a class or whatever, wherever you want to do yoga, is that you're motivated to do it because of the group. You know, it's very easy to be at home and to say, oh, I'm going to do yoga in the morning, 10 minutes after I get out of bed, after I have my coffee, I'll do it for a half hour. And then you see the dishes in the sink, and then you're running late, and then the dog has to go out or whatever. So it's nice to come to a class, but you can do it in the office. If you think about it, most people spend a lot of their lifetimes and a long day sitting in a chair.
Correct.
Especially nowadays, because we're sitting in front of computers all the time. Many of us, not all of us, fortunately, but many of us. And so you're sitting in this position. And there was some article recently, and I think things trickle down to me a little bit more slowly, sometimes just because I don't bombard myself with news. I find that for my peace of mind, it's better not to take the news in all the time. But right?
Definitely.
But this trickle down happened, and so you may have heard this before, but that sitting is the new smoking, that sitting is just as bad for you as smoking is. And so many of us are sitting all the time. So what I would say is, if you have to sit at an office job, this might seem like completely common sense, but get up every now and then and walk around so that you're not sitting all day long in the same position. If you have opportunity to get up and eat somewhere else in front of your computer, besides in front of your computer, then do it, because if you're trying to eat and work at the same time, you're not eating mindfully. You're not enjoying
nourishing
your
yourself on every level.
That's right, on every level. That's a good way of putting it. So I would say get up. I'd like to start today with just basic posture, because I think we can go a long way in helping ourselves feel better at the end of the day if we just find our correct posture. Because if we're sitting in front of a computer all the time, chances are you're doing this eventually. Yeah, right. Or you're doing this or some such thing. I mean, and I only know this from experience, right? Because I also have some work to do in front of the computer. And so it gets very easy to just kind of get slouchy and unmindful about how you're sitting. So if you're sitting in a chair, it's best to have both of your feet on the floor. And if you're mindful of the neutral curves of your spine, we have a spine that has 4 curves. And if we're cognizant of that and we're trying to maintain those neutral curves, your body wants those neutral curves. And so if you're sitting like this, you end up having more of an arch in your low back than you want, or flattening it out. So it's a concave arch, and more of a rounded upper back. And so we can go a long way just by keeping our ears stacked on top of our shoulders and our shoulders on top of our hips. Feet flat on the floor, and it's nice if you can get your legs to be parallel to the floor rather than too high up. So if your chair is too low, your legs are going to be too high up. So
and short people, we really do have a problem. Sometimes I need a little footstool just to get level at my computer.
Right, because you had the opposite problem where your knees drop down. So that can create more of an arch in your back than you want, which if you have a condition like spinal stenosis or something where you've got a narrowing of your spinal column anyway, it's not going to feel good to have more of an arch in your back than what is natural. So neutral curves of the spine. I'm sitting here with a little pillow behind me because I found that the way this chair was, there wasn't any support. So I could easily let my lumbar spine flatten out here, and then look what happens with the rest of my posture. My shoulders roll forward, my ears come forward. Then the muscles in my back here have to work harder to keep my head lifted because my head is heavy. So, and your head is we all have heavy heads because they're full of brains. But it's best if you could maybe give yourself a little bit of lumbar support so that you can get your ears over your shoulders. And then a lot of times what will happen, because our posture is this way so much and our head is forward, and obviously I'm exaggerating this a little bit, but you get the idea. Then when I say to somebody, let's get our ears over our shoulders, their natural reaction is to do this, because they're trying to get their ears back there, but what they end up doing is hyperextending their neck. So if you can think of sitting up straight and drawing the back of the neck back instead to find your neutral curves, then that's going to be better.
I find that sometimes if there's arms on a chair, I start leaning to one side because the height is not right for me because I am shorter than average.
Right.
And they make them for average.
Right.
So
See,
I
I'm
avoid
pretty
that.
average, so I don't have those same kinds of issues that short people have, but I do appreciate that. And tall people would have different issues, you know.
Correct,
So
yeah.
I'm a pretty average sized person for a woman human being.
So throughout the day, people should check their posture?
Yeah,
Okay.
if you could, you know, do something, set an alarm or let there be something on your desk that reminds you, like when your phone rings, you could say, oh my gosh, my phone's ringing, that reminds me, I need to get my ears over
Yeah.
my shoulders, like some little cue that you could have that would remind you throughout the day that's something familiar on your desk. If you're sitting in a chair like this, you have the opportunity to adjust it up or down, so you can really kind of play around with that. Because what you want to do when you're sitting also in an office is to have your say you're typing, to have your wrists in a fairly neutral position so that they're not straining one way or the other.
Okay.
And then to have your computer in front of you, and I do this all the time, so I know what it feels like. When I'm sitting at my computer, I go like this. And then after a while, what I end up doing is overstretching one side of my hips, and then my low back starts to hurt because of it. So you know, doctor, heed your own advice, right? It's just so feet flat on the floor, neutral position of the wrists, and then your computer screen should be at eye level so that you don't have to do this all the time. That's what we do all the time with our phones anyway. So if you can keep your ears over your shoulders and look at your screen, which is straight ahead.
That works better for desktops than laptops because laptop, to get
Totally.
the screen up here, the keyboard has to be high. So it's gonna,
Yeah, you have to stack your laptop on something.
Okay.
So maybe a yoga block or a phone book. Do they make phone books anymore? I don't know.
Good point.
Maybe.
I actually have a little thing under my laptop, a little shelfie thing that angles it and raises it.
Right, so get a shelfie thing. Okay, just like
High-tech
Joyce.
term.
Okay, so there we go. So posture, make yourself comfortable in your chair. Get yourself as neutral as you can. Remember, your body wants to have neutral curves. And also remember that your body will do whatever you asked it to do. So if over the years you've asked your body to do this, then doing this is going to be more challenging. Okay, so your body will do exactly what you ask it to do. Ask it to do this for 15 years, 20 years, 35 years. This is what you're going to look like when you're standing upright.
And that's on the outside. The inside is suffering too.
Right, absolutely. So create space. In yoga, we're always thinking about creating space, getting tall, getting open, getting wide. That's how we want to be. So we've got gravity going like this all day long. I want Joyce to be shorter. I want Joyce to be shorter. And then by the end of the day, you're shorter. And instead, you have the opportunity all day long to get taller and create space. So think about that. So in a chair, we were going to talk a little bit about some things you could do in a chair. So what your spine will move in 6 different directions. Your spine moves forward, which is called flexion of the spine. Your spine moves backward, which is called extension of the spine. Your spine will rotate to each side and lateral flexion to each side. So 6 different directions. So if you think of nothing else, think of that. How does my spine want to move? It wants to move in all of those 6 ways. It doesn't always just want to be in a forward bend. We're in a forward bend enough. So let's think about ways we could get ourselves into a back bend. Well, if you've got arms on your chair, all you really need to do is hold on to the fronts of the arms and arch yourself into a back bend. That should feel absolutely fabulously wonderful to anybody who's been sitting. It doesn't matter. And this is the simplest thing. Is this a yoga posture? Well, it's a back bend. We've got our spine in extension. So there's things that we do on the floor in yoga, well, like cobra pose, where we're stretching into a back bend. But if we don't have the opportunity to be on the floor, then we can do it in the chair. Some people can get on the floor when they're at work. You know, if you're one of the lucky ones, you have your little office, you can lock the door, you can do whatever you want, get down on the floor and do a back bend. Then great, then you are one of the lucky ones.
But let's assume most people don't have that luxury.
Right, so here's your little back bend.
Okay, perfect.
The other way that you can get a little back bend in is to stand up and stand behind your chair. So these chairs are kind of low, but we can
Not
show
for
this.
me.
Not for Joyce. They're low for the...
Sorry to gloat.
Right, so here, just holding onto the back of the chair and then backing up, I don't know if you can see this or not, backing up, backing up, backing up. And then you can arch your back here a little bit. So your tail is sticking up a little bit, and you've got your shoulders a little bit higher than your belly. And we're lifting here into a little back bend. This also feels really nice in the shoulders.
It does,
We have our shoulders in extension. And I like to keep knees soft whenever I'm bending forward. Knees soft, so they're just a little bit bent. And that's going to help you feel less strain in your hamstrings and the upper part of your back of your thigh. So just a little softness in the knees. And the alignment in your knees, upper leg to lower leg, is better when your knees are a little bit soft. We have this here too that we brought in just because this is a little higher. And so you might have in your office space a little kitchen or kitchenette where you can heat up your lunch or whatever. And this works nicely too. It's a little more stable, and it's the same kind of thing where we can bend knees, we can do as much of an arch as we need to in the back, and that's what I would call downward facing dog at the wall or at the chair or whatever. So it also helps us to extend through the sides of our body. And you can, the wonderful thing about doing this in a, really anywhere, the wonderful thing about yoga is that you can make this whatever you want it to be. So if I say, well, you know what, I have really tight shoulders and I can't go like this, I personally do not have tight shoulders. I can stretch way down here and get my shoulders really open, but somebody who has tight shoulders might stop here, and they might just be able to lift their tail a little bit more, so they can make an adjustment to find the back bend that feels good for them.
Okay,
so
that's
standing
perfect.
up behind your chair is nice. While we're standing up, one of the things that I like to do too, and this might be a little harder in an office, is what I would call pigeon on the table.
Oh,
right?
I know where you're going with this.
So it's a stretch for your hip, and you know when you're sitting all day, your hips get tight too. So this is a table that's like a nice height for Joyce. This one is better for me, but when we're getting our legs up on the table, and then you can fold forward over your leg like this, and that gives you a nice stretch along the outer edge. So if you're a little taller, or if you're a man and you're a little taller, not necessarily, I shouldn't generalize that all men are tall, but generally they tend to be a little taller. You might want to use something that's a little higher and then fold forward over your leg, and it's a nice stretch for the hips.
Oh, it feels great. I needed this today. I didn't realize that I hadn't done any hip stretches today. So.
Yeah, it is nice. Some people have really tight hips too, so that's harder, but you can do this one also in your chair. If you sit closer to the edge of your chair, I noticed when I sat too far forward in this one, it wanted to tip me out. So you have to kind of find that sweet spot, and then cross over your own leg and bend forward over your leg, and you can get that same stretch. So this one might be a little bit less
more
doable in an office if there's a lot of people around, if you have a cubicle that you work in or something.
Yeah, I can't
like
see
that.
throwing your leg and foot up on a table if there's a lot of other people around. But boy,
Right.
that felt really good to
Yeah,
stretch.
it's really
and
nice.
Open the hips.
Also, just some simple things like folding all the way forward over your legs, letting your arms hang, because you know your shoulders get tight from sitting upright. All those muscles along your back are working to hold you upright. So just the relief of not having to use those muscles of posture for a little while by folding forward, all the way forward instead of slouching forward. And then again, the back bend both ways. But then with a chair with arms, it's really nice because you can easily rotate and it gives you something to anchor on. Right?
Yeah.
So you can either hold on to the handle with both hands, or you can reach all the way around to the back of your chair, depending. This one's a little high, this chair. Joyce and I tried to move in all the different kinds of chairs that you could think of.
The boss might have a chair like this.
Right,
And
so the boss isn't going to be able to reach around to the back of her chair, but these low ones are nice for that. Again, both feet flat on the floor and rotating both ways. And then you can also move that rotation into your neck a little bit more by looking out over your shoulder. You can really do whatever you want, rotate as much as you want.
These arms really are nice.
They're really
kind of
nice.
Stabilizers, and
These are nice
help
chairs.
you deepen the
And then the other thing we talked about was lateral flexion, so that you could do just by lifting and reaching out over, or you could reach, it's really going to depend on the chair, and you're going to have to find a place where you're the most comfortable, but reaching out overhead. And then just moving your arms overhead and back down feels good, just to get your arms up over your shoulders, which we don't do very often. If you think about the last time you reached like this for something.
In yoga class.
In yoga class, but in your life. And you might reach more because you're short, so you might have the opportunity to reach like the upper thing on the top shelf of the supermarket or whatever. But just to get your arms up over your head, it feels really good. I would just suggest too something very simple, wrist circles, right? Play the piano a little bit, get your fingers going. There's a stretch that we do in yoga class called eagle arms, which I like very much. It's not terribly complicated, but maybe the first time people see it, they might say, oh, that looks so weird.
Feels great to do it, though.
So we'll show that right now. So basically, we're catching one elbow under the other and bringing the palms together. So this is where some people get held up a little bit, just because if their shoulders are tight, they often can't get their palms to come together. So in that case, they would just stretch their arm across their chest. And if you're mindful about not rotating like this when you're doing it, then you're going to get the stretch in your shoulder rather than the twist. Not that the twist is bad for you, but what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? So that's that. Eagle arms. And then when I'm in eagle arms, I like to lift up my elbows a little bit and drop my chin down. And when I drop my chin to my chest, that brings a nice big stretch across that space between shoulder blades, right, and into your neck. And that's where we're feeling strained from looking down all the time, or slouching, or whatever we're doing forward.
Okay, we have 2 minutes left, and I don't want to not have time to do something with these.
Time flies.
It does.
It does. Okay, so this is one of the things you can always do in an office no matter where you are, or on an airplane or whatever. These are little balls that have nubs on them. These are readily available online or in sporting goods stores. And basically, rolling your feet on them will stimulate every area of your body. So, do you have your shoes off?
I do. Okay, I couldn't wait to use this.
So Joyce is using those. I also have these therapeutic balls that I use all the time in my classes, which will do the same thing. They're a little softer, but they're a little nicer than a tennis ball, because there's more oomph to them than a tennis ball. A tennis ball is hollow. But the other thing I love about these, they come with a bag, and these you can use to roll your forearms, every part of your body. But in an office, if you had a set of these in your drawer, just to roll your forearm is an amazing thing. So
I'm loving the foot thing here. Now, you have in our classes had us stand and just see how far we can rotate, and then had us use the balls on all the pressure points, the reflexology points on our foot, and it's amazing after doing that how much more flexible we are.
Right. Right, just rolling the bottoms of your feet will be a miracle in your neck. I promise you. That's why I started rolling on the ball in the first place, because I have some tightness on one side of my neck. And so I am able to rotate my head so much better after I've used the ball. So I would definitely recommend that for everybody. It doesn't matter what ails you. Use the balls. I am a big believer. So.
Well, I cannot believe our time went by this quickly. Promise you'll come back again and do some more work with us. This truly does show that not just yoga is for everybody, but it's really for every place. So thanks so much, Leslie. Thanks for joining us on the Sacred Journey. We'll see you next week.